uphold the Constitution and interpret it and not legislate from the bench. So let me just say to all of you, for the sake of the rule of law, for the sake of our Constitution, for the sake of the sanctity of life, for the sake of our Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms, we must decide here and now in North Carolina that the next president who will make appointments to the Supreme Court of the United States will be President Donald Trump. You got to decide that, North Carolina. So it's about security at home and abroad. It's about prosperity. It's about the highest court in the land. But men and women in North Carolina, it's also about having the highest standards of integrity in the highest office in the land. And I got to tell you, I was awful proud of my running mate last night as the media continues to ignore. As the media continues to ignore the avalanche of controversies and corruptions coming out of the years of the Clintons, particularly in the recent years when she was Secretary of State. Donald Trump went to that stage last night and put the truth before the American people. I mean, let's just make sure we have this so we can talk to our neighbors and friends. When Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State of the United States of America, third-ranking constitutional official in charge of all of our nation's foreign policy, her family had a private foundation that accepted millions of dollars from foreign governments and foreign donors. And then in between those two things, she had a private server. That when that was found out by the New York Times of all newspapers, when that was found out by the New York Times and Congress made inquiries for copies of the email, she used high technology and hammers to destroy emails and to destroy evidence. Men and women, I remember, I'm old enough to remember when a president erased 18.5 minutes of tape and was run out of town. Hillary Clinton used high technology to erase more than 18,000 emails that we're still waiting to hear about. It's just incredible. I mean, that doesn't sound like politics as usual. That sounds like obstruction. And the American people are sick and tired of it, and they're not having any of it. And you know, in the midst of the last several days, I know there was a lot of attention on other issues. But did you see those excerpts of speeches that came out late Friday? It was the Wall Street speeches that Bernie Sanders was so interested in and so much of the media was interested in. Here's a few excerpts, although there's more. Hillary Clinton behind closed doors in excerpts released late Friday, told major donors that to be, quote, successful politically, you have to have, quote, both a public and private position. Close quote. When she was asked about that on television, I mean, give the moderator some credit. She was asked about it last night. We got a lecture about Abraham Lincoln. Did you see that? Well, as a member of the party of Lincoln, I would really prefer if dishonest Hillary did not associate herself with honest Abe. All right. Here's another excerpt, speaking to a Brazilian bank. Did you hear this? Speaking to a Brazilian bank, this is an excerpt from her speech. She said, quote, her dream was, quote, a hemisphere common market with open trade and open borders. And just in case you're still trying to interpret everything that she said about health care reform last night, she actually gave a speech in Canada in which she said that her goal was to have a health care system, quote, like you have here in Canada. Well, Hillary, we don't want socialized medicine in America. That's what they have in Canada. We want medicine and health care that's built on the free market, on consumer choice, on the ability to choose your doctor and choose your health care and choose your system. That's the American way. So let me just say before I close, and I'll slip to your questions. For the sake of our security, for the sake of our prosperity, for the sake of the highest office in the land, and for the sake of preserving and having a truth teller in the highest office in the land, we must decide here and now in North Carolina that Hillary Clinton will never become President of the United States of America. That's got to be the decision. And you've got to go out and make it happen. So with this, I'll close. You know, there's so many things that divide us these days. I mean, I got to tell you, some mornings I just get up and I got to turn on the television with a stick. You know, I'm kind of new to this level, right? I mean, it's high wire without a net, right? But I'm honored to be here, and I couldn't be more honored that you all would take time to come out and see me today. It just blesses my heart. Blesses my heart. You know, it seems like there's so many things that divide us. There's so few great purposes that unite us as they once did. But I want to tell you about Donald Trump and me. We're two people that were raised to believe and will always believe that there will always be more that unites us in these United States of America than will ever divide the great people of this nation. Truly believe it. And it has a lot to do with faith. Faith in God and faith in the American dream. You know, when I first got to know the Trumps, it was just this summer. Karen and I were invited to come out. He was considering a long list of very distinguished men and women for this position. We spent some time together with them as a family. To know the Trumps is to know a family, just as to know the Pences is to know a family. I've not only got the boss traveling along with me today, but where'd she go? I've also got our daughter Charlotte with us. Recent college graduate who has a job. But as we got to know the Trumps, it was really kind of interesting. I found out that we shared some things. I mean, my grandfather immigrated to this country from Ireland when he was about my son's age. Donald Trump's grandfather immigrated to this country. They both came through Ellis Island. His dad was a self-made man who built a business with his bare hands, built everything that matters, a family and a business and a good name. My dad ran gas stations in a small town in southern Indiana, but did the same. My late father used to say when they started out, they didn't have 2 nickels to rub together. And they had more than a few nickels by the time that he left us 30 years ago. You know, Donald Trump and I were both raised to believe to whom much is given, much will be required. And so for him, that meant the kid from Queens went to Manhattan Island and started to build the big buildings to the sky, right? For me, it was a calling into public service and a dream of representing my hometown in Washington, D.C., never imagining I could ever be the governor of our state and never even conceiving of the fact that I could be standing before all you good people today. I tell people often, I say, you know, other than a whole lot of zeros, Donald Trump and I really do have a lot in common. A lot. And that's, we both believe in the American dream because we've lived it. Our families lived it. And I want to tell you, as you leave here today, I hope you leave this town hall meeting today. I'll say this to you before I leave. I hope you leave here today and go tell somebody. Okay? I hope you go tell somebody about the choice that we face on security and on the economy and prosperity and on the Supreme Court and and about the high standards of integrity in public life. But I hope you also tell them that in Donald Trump and Mike Pence, you've got two people that are going to fight every day to revive the American dream for every American, regardless of race or creed or color or gender or area code or income. We're going to fight to bring the American dream back to life for everyone in this nation. So help us God. It's not just faith in the American dream, but it's the other kind of faith. I kind of started there, all in there. You know, this is a very challenging time in the life of our nation. I stepped forward and accepted this role because I think this country's in a lot of trouble. I really do. This is no ordinary time. And it cannot be met with ordinary effort or just with our effort alone. I truly do believe that now is the time to do all that we can, to work like it all depended on us. But if you're inclined to bow the head and bend the knee, it's a good time to pray for this country. It really is. And I'm not so much talking about winning and losing. I'm talking about America. And I'm talking about my firm conviction that what has been true for millennia is still true today. That if His people, who are called by His name, will humble themselves and pray, He'll hear from heaven again, and He will heal our land. One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So in the days ahead, I just encourage you to tell somebody. Lay out that choice. I said at the very beginning, I'll say it again. This isn't just a choice between two people that were on a stage last night. It's really a choice between two futures. This is not a time where it's sometimes been that, I don't know about you here in North Carolina, but sometimes in Indiana, it's a choice between one candidate who will take us this far up and another one, it'd probably take us about that far up. Right? I mean, a lot of times there's not a dime's worth of difference between Republican and Democrat, right? This isn't such a time. I mean, I think this is a time of whether or not we're going to continue to go downhill toward a weaker America at home and abroad, to a wider world spinning apart in the wake of American weakness and retreat, to a weaker American economy, struggling incomes and families, and walking farther away from our constitutional principles and ideals, or whether we're going to stop, plant our feet, turn around, turn our faces like flint against the wind, and march back up the hill toward freedom and prosperity and a stronger America at home and abroad. That's the choice we have, North Carolina, and that's what you have to go tell your neighbors. It's a choice between up and down, and the American people, I know, if we do our work, will choose freedom, they will choose strength, and they will make Donald Trump the next president of the United States of America. Let's go get it done. Let's go get it done, North Carolina. Thanks. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for letting me get that off my chest. I do, I honestly believe that sometimes you got to pay more careful attention to what you already know. Particularly when it gets the water gets a little choppy, right? You got to hew to your roots. I hope some of the words I shared today may enliven in your minds the story that we want you to go and tell. But now it's your turn. I'd love to, the time that we have remaining, I'd love it if you slip your hand in the air, share with me your first name, and I'd be happy to respond to your questions or hear your thoughts. How about right over here? We'll start with this young lady. Hi. What's your first name?
Andriana Howard.
Andriana?
I'm from Greece.
Oh, greetings.
And I know about communism and all the bad stuff happening over there, which they try to bring over here. I'm very angry, Mr. Pence. I'm angry because I'm 60 years old. I don't look it. But my husband and I, we lost our insurance after so many years. Last week, because I like to continue my health and everything, prevention, I pay $1,000 out of my pocket just to keep my health going because I'm afraid if something happened, I'll be dead. That's why I'm voting for you and Mr. Trump. You, both of you are my men. You are the best men. The best men. Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be with you today. Thank you for your kind words. And thank you for your example. You know, it really is remarkable. It really is remarkable. Two things you said there that I want to amplify. Well, maybe three. You don't look it. Okay. Is that right? Give that a round of applause. That nice lady. Stand up. That was a nice thing. Yeah, I do. So, I do. So anyway, Greece, I think it's just such a really good important. This administration, this administration actually has nearly doubled the national debt. I mean, think about that. In the entire history of the United States of America, till 2008, we accumulated roughly half of the current national debt that we have today. I mean, it took nearly 2.5 centuries to get to this level, and they nearly doubled it. Hillary Clinton's plan increased spending by $2 trillion. And the truth is, their economic policy, you're never going to balance the federal budget unless you get the American economy growing again, and you can't tax your way back to a growing economy. And Hillary Clinton's plan is to raise taxes, increase spending, and it is a pathway to turning America into Greece. I promise you that. It's a great, great point on your part. On health care reform, let's just be very clear. It's a very, very clear choice in this regard, and it breaks my heart to hear that you lost your insurance. But anybody else remember the promise? If you like your insurance, you can keep it. If you like your doctor, you can keep him. I mean, that literally is I think Bill Clinton actually referenced those things when he was talking about it being the craziest thing in the world. We know what we need to do on health care reform. Donald Trump talked about it a bit last night. Look, you block grant Medicaid back to the states. Let states like Indiana's been able to do to a certain extent, innovate in ways that empower people to take greater ownership of their own health care that are struggling at or near the poverty level. And then the rest of it, let's break open the lines, allow people to purchase health insurance across state lines, the way you buy auto insurance, the way you buy life insurance, and we'll see the cost of health insurance come down, right? And the quality will come up. So it'll happen. There's the free market principles, not the Canadian-style system that Hillary advocated in that private speech, is the right way. Go ahead. I think we got one right here in the red.
My name is John Ellis.
Hi, John.
I'm a little older than the lady, 78 and a half years old.
Good for you. You don't look it either.
What I'd like to bring up is that Hillary Clinton has promised free college education. She wants more illegals at $68,000. My question is, I started working at 13, putting in money into Social Security, a fund that has been created by 50% by myself and 50% by my employers.
Right.
It is a fund that was taken from and used by the government since 1960. We have not had, even though this is our money that our government promised to return to us at retirement, we haven't had an increase in 5.5 years. And my thing is, let's create not only jobs for Americans and veterans, but how about giving us some of our money? I have a printed sheet I'd like for her to bring to you to remind
Great.
of the question, if
Great.
that would be all right.
It's perfectly all right, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, thank you, John. Thank you. Thanks, John. And I think I see the insignia there, Semper Fi. Thank you for your service in the United States Marine Corps. We're honored to have you. Great point. Look, I want to, two things that you touched on there that got me thinking. Number one is, I promise you, in my first conversation with Donald Trump, the first time we sat down, he said to me, we are going to support and defend Social Security and Medicare in a Trump administration. He's going to do it. I know you hear, you know, my counterpart in the other party, I had a little debate in Farmville about a week ago with him. And when he wasn't interrupting me, he actually brought up a few. If you're something about Social Security, and when I was in the Congress, we supported different things, but I'm going to tell you, Donald Trump's policy is clear. But the way you meet the obligations and the way you consider the things that you're talking about is you got to get this economy off its back. I mean, you want to talk about bringing down the national debt. You want to talk about making sure our seniors have the resources that, to your point, you put into Social Security, okay? Then you've got to begin to grow this economy. A 1% economy is just a pathway to bad choices for the next generation of Americans, including our seniors. But Donald Trump, first and foremost, is going to keep our promise to our seniors, but we're going to do it by getting the American economy growing again so we have the resources to meet those obligations. I promise you. Yes, sir. Let's see, how about right over here? Oh, here we go. Got some royalty here. Stand up.
Hi, Governor Pence, Sarah from Waxhaw, North Carolina. My husband and I have met you on several occasions. He was seriously wounded in Afghanistan. We recently waited 10 months for a referral for one appointment from the VA. How can we improve this? What will you and Mr. Trump do?
Let me tell you, the high point of my days at the Republican National Convention were meeting your courageous husband and you. And I'm really terribly honored. Would you mind joining me in thanking this incredible family and this warrior for their service to this country one more time? Thank you so much. And I actually thought of this when the Marine was standing just a second ago. First speech I attended with Donald Trump right after the Republican National Convention was at the VFW. And we had a lot of veterans stand up who are here with us today, including your husband. And what I want to tell you is Donald Trump has laid out a plan. It is absolutely appalling that men and women who wore the uniform, who went into harm's way, have in recent years actually lost their lives waiting for health care from the VA. That ends the day that Donald Trump becomes president of the United States. That's over. We're going to fix the VA. And I want you to look at that plan. I want you to look at the plan. I think it's about a 10-point plan. It all begins with changing personnel, changing expectations, but it's also changing the philosophy. Look, this is not, a lot of people talk about VA benefits like it's an entitlement, right? It's not an entitlement. Donald Trump and I know that benefits through the VA are part of the ongoing compensation for men and women who wore the uniform of the United States of America. And we have to pay the bill and provide that compensation for those who serve. And we will. It's a mindset. So you got to have world-class health care, you got to change expectations, you got to modernize systems, but the last thing is the fail-safe. And that is Donald Trump has made it clear that if veterans cannot receive world-class veterans benefits under a Trump-Pence administration, we're going to make it possible for them to go across the street, get private health care, and the American people will pay for it. Okay? We'll be ready. Big change is coming. How about right up here?
Governor Pence, we have time for one more question.
Okay, good.
I'm holding a picture of my family in my hand. I'm the proud mom of 9 children, 8 from my womb, 1 from the inner city of New York. And when you look at my family, there's more than just that. My father's retired Navy, 22 years, retired Dallas peace officer of 20 years. My mom was Hispanic, she's passed away, but from Mexico. Her family came here legally as immigrants. We've lost our insurance as a family because we can't afford $1,800 a month, but I'm more concerned as we stand here in Charlotte and we have seen the division that this administration has brought. When I look at my child who is African American and who lives in Harlem half of the year and is more concerned about what's going on in his neighborhood than he is the police, I also want to see, because my dad is a police officer, retired, I want to see our police officers protected, respected, and I want to know. That is a very tall order. I'm also an ordained minister, saved by grace. So when I look at all of the things that you have to do, one, I am committed to praying for you. I am committed to praying and calling on other Christians to take a stand and to start praying for these men. But what is going to be the first thing that you do in terms of relations of racial divide in our country when you guys get into office, and you will get into office?
Thank you so much. Well, thank you for sharing your beautiful family. Thank you for sharing your witness. And thank you for your prayers for me and my family and for the Trumps. We truly are grateful. We rely on prayer at our house. We appreciate that. And I will say to you, I really do believe that the divisions that we have can be healed in this country when we're standing tall again and when we're standing on that shared foundation again. I mean, you said your father was a police officer, is that right? My uncle was a cop in Chicago for 25 years. And, you know, my heart breaks for the people of North Carolina and the people of other communities that have faced the harsh division that has followed police action shootings. We need to be very clear when there's ever a loss of life, I grieve that. And that whenever there's a loss of life because of law enforcement action, the public deserves an immediate and transparent review of that. But enough of those who would seize on these tragic moments to further divide us and to demean people who serve in law enforcement. We need to come together, we need to build communities, and I truly do believe that what Donald Trump is advocating, and what I'm proud to stand with him advocating, is a stronger America. It's a more prosperous America. It's an America where jobs and opportunities and quality education come to every community again, in the city and on the farm. I mean, one of the things he's most passionate about is educational choice. Donald Trump and I believe that parents ought to be able to choose where their children go to school, regardless of their income or their area code, public, private, parochial, or homeschool. Opening doors for many families that find themselves and their kids trapped in failing schools, making sure that we're providing the resources for law enforcement to create prosperity in our streets, ending the flow of illegal drugs into our country that is tearing apart families in Indiana and here in North Carolina. But it can all happen. I guess that's what I'd leave you with today, is we got 29 days. We got 29 days to make a change, or not. Because this election is, I mean, if you're one of the people that thinks this country's on the right track, if you think that America's place in the world is just fine, if you think that our economy is about as good as we can expect it to be these days, and our kids just have to get used to the fact their future may not be as prosperous as ours, and then you've got one candidate in the race. But I want you to leave here today and tell people, all across North Carolina, all across this community, if you believe we can be strong again on the world stage, if you believe we can open doors of opportunities for every American, in every community, large and small, across this nation again. If you believe that we can create jobs and opportunities and be standing tall with our children and our grandchildren, able to not only have a great education, but start a great future. And if you believe we can do it all on a foundation of that solid Constitution and the faith that underpins it, then I need you to leave here today and not rest and not relent until you have told every neighbor, every friend, at work, at worship, over the backyard fence, that when we make Donald Trump the next president of the United States of America, we will make America great again. So let's go get it done. Let's go tell somebody in North Carolina we can make it happen. Thanks, everybody, and God bless you.
In the back